Today we're going to take a road trip up to Mendham, New Jersey to meet with my friend Anthony of Real Antique Wood. We'll take a look at the barn that they're taking down, and this is going to be the first episode in what will be a series that will cover the barn from the site to the mill. This episode is sponsored by Technor Apex, maker of the Zero G hose. I've been using the Zero G hose now for more than a year and a half, and this is just a great hose. I'd highly recommend it. It comes with a 5-year warranty, so you really can't go wrong. And if you want something even tougher, you can go with the job site hose. You'll be able to tell by its neon green color, and this one comes with a 10-year warranty. So big thanks to Technor Apex, maker of the Zero G hose. Let's go meet Anthony.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well, yourself?
Good to see you, man.
Good morning. So this is the main entrance to the Pitney Farm, and the original home from the early 1720s, which is now demolished. Unfortunately, a portion of that was burnt down a few years back. So, and the barn that we're going after is still here, luckily. So we'll go do a quick little tour around.
So what are they going to turn this into? Residential area?
No, supposedly the one, it's being split up. I want to say it's about 13 acres altogether. One portion, or 12 or 13 acres, one portion of it's going to be 7 acres of like open space, so it'll be turned into a park, and then the other 5 is privately owned, or 5-6 acres, whatever it is. This has been a long process here. I mean, I stepped foot on this property probably close to a year and a half ago for the first time, but there's a lot of history, especially to this property and just this area as a whole. Mr. Pitney, we'll call him, back in the day, I don't recall his first name. He had actually fought with George Washington in the Battle of Long Island. I don't recall the year of that either, but so there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of cool stuff just to kind of look at, poke around and see, and almost kind of takes you back in time.
So there it is, huh?
There it is.
Wow, that's a big barn.
It is, especially for New Jersey. Typically the barns this size were taken down out in Ohio. So we're lucky. This one, we're going to consider this local. It's an hour drive from the shop, and we got plenty of material here, probably about 2 tractor trailer loads worth of material once we're all said and done. So the siding on here is just some red. We're actually going to be taking some pieces back to the shop for some samples, and inside has a beautiful, nice brown patina. It's about 7 inches wide for the most part. It is white pine, so it's not a hardwood siding or anything like that. We would use it specifically for wall cladding or ceiling, something like that. It's a real nice lightweight material. Nothing super fancy. We've had nicer, but the big thing is the quantity of the timber inside, what the actual structure is made up of. That's truly what we're going after. Here we are to the main entrance of our palace here. So,
And you have the concrete silos.
Concrete silos, those we're not going to be doing anything with.
Will you take them down or just leave them?
We'll leave them. I mean, they have the excavators. They'll probably honestly put a box over here and just chomp away at it and piece by piece into the container. Unfortunately, we don't have a use for any of that.
How does a job like this start?
Big thing, to get everything rolling here, bunch of landscaping. We'll clear all the trees. We'll get the ground flat, be able to work safely. We don't want anything getting hung up, and we'll have guys in harnesses and up on the basket on the machine. So landscaping, and then the next step would be strip all the siding off.
And then you see the frame, and that's really where it's at, the frame?
Yeah, that is the big motivation for us here, is the frame. I mean, I think when we did the math, it was over 250 joists just on one floor.
White oak and chestnut.
White oak and chestnut, yeah.
I'm surprised they used hardwoods. Is that common for barn building?
I mean, typically it all depends on the area. I mean, even in this area, you do have a lot of hardwoods around. Up in New York, you'll get a lot of pine and hemlock and softwood and things like that. A lot of the barns in eastern Ohio that we've done, a lot of white oak, hickory, and beech, and all hardwood. And then you get a little further west into central Ohio, you get a lot of poplar, and you get some walnut. They're using whatever is close by. This was probably had a sawmill here on site. So even some of the older hewn barns that we do, they're cutting the timber, they're squaring up the trees into beams right on site. So I would imagine that all of this timber didn't come very far from where it is now. So once it's at the shop, it goes through a whole few different processes. first and foremost, we're going to denail it. We want to remove any sort of screws, nails, bullets, whatever we may find, so that we can start to process the material. It's a very labor-intensive process, but without it, we're not making anything with this particular wood unless somebody wanted, to take it as it is. So we'll denail it and we'll kiln dry it, make sure the moisture content comes down, and make sure that we kill any sort of wood-consuming insects. That's definitely one of the most important steps.
Wood-consuming insects.
Powder post beetles, any boring beetles, any sort of insect that either lives in or lives off of the material. We want to make sure those are non-existent, so that when, let's say, this gets milled into flooring for a customer, they're not going to call us back when springtime comes around and say that they have little piles of dust on their floor, because the larvae are starting to wake up because it's getting warm out.
So primarily you'll be making a lot of flooring?
Yeah. So definitely with the floor joists, they're full 2-inch thick. So we'll be able to get 2 flooring blanks out of them. We'll actually put them on a resaw and split them in half. And the beams, fireplace mantles or ceiling beams, or we can even cut those up into flooring as well.
Tables, big farmhouse tables?
Oh, absolutely. Whatever our customer wants. That's the beauty of starting with this process. We have the full capability to turn it into really whatever they want.
What a great thing. A big farm table made from an old barn.
The Pitney barn.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So we got a little bit of cleaning out to do here, but as you can see, this is one of my most favorite parts of the process. Actually, just walking in and just listen to the silence. There's literally nothing that goes on. It's kind of an eerie but exciting feeling all at the same time. So as you can see, we're loaded up with joists. I mean, they did not spare any expense. And this beam here, that's an 8x10. That's oak, and that goes full span. That's 35 feet. So this is an 8-bent barn, so we'll have 8 structures just like this here with the queen posts. And we got some smaller 6x6 purlins up top. And it looks rough, it looks dirty now, but then once we actually do what we do to it, that's the beautiful part of seeing the transformation.
And the barn goes on. I didn't realize it from where we were standing.
Yep, so this was an addition at some point. I wasn't able to track down any sort of, age or any of that fun stuff just yet. Construction, I would say same time period. It might have been added on at the same time when the barn was originally rebuilt back in 1910. We got some 6x8, some 4x6s, and a whole lot of 2x7 rafters up top.
So that looks like a big cupola up there.
Yeah.
Will you dismantle them intact?
Ideally, I'd like to try and remove it as one piece. We had actually done an old homestead from the 1730s in Far Hills that had a cupola very similar to that size. We were able to rig it up. It had the beautiful seamed copper roof on there. I would try to get that down to one piece. I wouldn't want to go taking that apart. It's been together for, over 100 years. It's not going to want to come apart easily. So we're on the second floor of the Pitney barn. I'm just kind of inspecting the structure a little bit and just kind of tallying up, see what we're going to be up against. The hope is each bent, so each one of these structures, we would actually remove the purlins and we would take this whole structure, if possible, this whole bent, pick it up with our telehandler and then move it out onto a flat portion and disassemble this on the ground. Because having the steel going through it, there's definitely a lot of tension on there, keeping everything tight. And it's much easier on the ground, much less dangerous, and then we don't ruin any of the timber at the same time. So,
what are the main tools you'll be using to disassemble the beams?
Once it is on the ground, main tool would be a little chainsaw, a little steel pruning saw does the trick. For the steel rods, you would honestly just take a demo saw with with an abrasive wheel on it, just to remove those much faster than using a Sawzall or anything like that. So definitely want to try and preserve as much as possible. It's unfortunate to see this barn being in such good shape to be taken apart, but at least we're doing our part to try and preserve as much as possible. I mean, this would be a beautiful home somewhere, in my personal opinion. I don't have it like that, so It's not going to be my home, but it would be a beautiful converted barn if it was possible. So who knows? We might get somebody in the process of while we're taking it down that might see this and want to use some of it for timber framing, which would be awesome.
Yeah, it's in good shape.
It's crazy. It's tight. It's definitely not. It's starting to fail. The roof is starting to leak a little bit. Some of the spots in the floors are getting a little soft. But all in all, I mean, even the siding, look, we'll get about 4,000 feet or so of the siding is what we were talking about outside. The one side is red. Not everybody likes the red. It's definitely, you need the right spot for it. But the inside, the brown is beautiful. It has a nice patina, a nice texture to it. I mean, that would be beautiful on somebody's ceiling or a wall, feature wall over the fireplace or something like that. So we're going to try and save as much as possible. That here is chestnut.
I was going to say, I was going to guess chestnut, even though it's harder to identify wood when it's rough sawn and kind of dirty like that.
Definitely is.
But you can see by the grain.
Yep.
You don't hear much about chestnut these days.
Certainly don't hear much about chestnut. I know they are actually growing a new strand. This was pre-blight, so we're probably going to encounter very, very little worminess to the material besides a little bit here or there. As you can see, even up by this knot, we got a couple holes here.
When did the blight start?
20s. So that was when it was actually in full swing. So it probably did start a couple years prior. This barn probably just made it. Prior to that, these trees were probably standing 1900, 1905. So it's definitely pretty crazy that you can see this structure built just prior to the blight, as opposed to some of the other barns that have had, some chestnut that was maybe added to the barn at some point, and it's just unbelievably wormy, which is beautiful. But chestnut this clean you don't come across. It's much more common for us in what we do to find chestnut that's very wormy, very rustic. Have something this clean, it's few and far between. So, I mean, the most beautiful part of taking the barns down is some of the small hidden treasures. I mean, it's as simple as this little 4x4 quarter sawn, got beautiful heavy fleck in here.
So you'll take that 4x4, and I'll try to get a better shot of it, but you can see how figured it is.
Yeah. And
you'll just kind of put that away somewhere and say,
yeah, we'll stash it. I mean, if we would even maybe put it on a resaw and cut it into a flooring blank if somebody wanted that special floor, real, heavy fleck floor. We'll cull through the pieces, separate the real nice premium stuff out like that, or that would even be a beautiful table leg.
So you might actually use it on a project that you build in the shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you build a lot of furniture in the shop.
We do, absolutely. Like this here would be a perfect, for a trestle base for a farm table or something. That would be the side facing out. So when you walk by that table, you're going to see that beauty.
It's hard to see anything in here, but it just looks pretty cool.
It is very tough. This was the one beam that got me super excited here. This is an 8x8 chestnut, 35 foot, another one full span. So we're going to want to try and keep them as the old woodworking rule goes, as long as possible for as long as possible.
That's the old woodworking rule?
That's my rule. That's what I was told. That's what my shop teacher always said.
Keep the boards as long as possible for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
So you can see it, the little stone wall. This would have been the main entrance into, we'll call it the courtyard. And you can kind of slow it down and think a little bit, go back in time what this would have actually been like, let's say 100+ years ago. There used to be a little roof covering this portion here where the wagons probably would have backed in to get loaded. And it's a little bit of an eerie feeling just to really slow down and look and actually see what was done, and to really think that, the amount of time and the manpower that went into building, the time to stack the stone and to build the barn and everything else. It's a crazy feeling.
Okay, well, man, that was cool. Always fun learning new things, especially from people who are as passionate about what they're doing as Anthony is. and you can tell he's just very knowledgeable. He knows how the barns were put together, what materials were used, and why. And I think it's just going to be really exciting to document this whole process. And we'll probably finish up in the mill, hopefully seeing one of those beams resawed at some point. And I will start posting videos once the job starts, and that's going to be in about 10 days or 2 weeks. And once that happens, I'll probably post every 2 or 3 days, almost in a vlog-like style. And I'll definitely be posting stories on my Instagram, and I'll be posting Instagram posts also. So I hope you'll follow me over there. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.